Hey everyone, and welcome to SkillCapped. My name is Dr. Zora, and in today's video we're going over TENZ's return to competitive play on Team Sentinels and how he was able to dominate and win the entire tournament despite being away from pro play for several months. There are multiple aspects in play that allowed TENZ to achieve this. We already know that he is an insane player, but there was much more that contributed to his performance than just his mechanics. So we're going to go over the top 5 ways that TENZ dominated the NA competition, and without further ado, let's get right into it. We're going to start today's video though with our question of the day: who is your current favorite player in Valorant? TENZ is obviously an incredibly skilled player with thousands of fans, however sometimes skill isn't what sells the player. If you click this video, you're likely to be a TENZ fan, but I'm sure there are outliers out there. There have been multiple Valorant players that have risen in the past few months through multiple factors, both through competitive play and content creation. So comment below on what your favorite player is, as we're curious who's the most popular, as well as those that are underrated. We're going to get into some more detailed information about the matchup, but we're going to go through the obvious first. With TENZ hopping in so suddenly, it became a question of which agent he would be playing. Luckily for him, Sentinels was a very flexible team and allowed TENZ to play his comfort picks, which were the Duelists, Jett, Reyna, and Raze. This is a simple but very important point to make, as playing Duelists allowed TENZ to play his usual style versus if he was to play a different agent where he is less comfortable and therefore would be less likely to perform. While there isn't really a Reyna or Raze main on Sentinels, the real agent of contention was Jett, who Shazam tended to play as his main. Rather than keeping the agent all to himself and forcing TENZ to play something else, Shazam adapted and ended up using Sova for a majority of the tournament. Even though Jett was his main agent that he used in competitive play, he opted to go for his second main agent that is an initiator to open up the Duelist slot for TENZ. Shazam still played Jett occasionally throughout the tournament, but only after considering their team composition and whether TENZ and the team wanted him on a different agent depending on the map and team that they're facing. It's due to Shazam's adaptability that made this possible, and TENZ being able to go onto the Duelist that allowed him to play his style and dominate VCT Masters. Speaking of playstyles, this was the biggest factor that allowed TENZ to shine. Going along with Duelists, TENZ tends to play very aggressively, and with his agent selection and freedom provided by Sentinels, TENZ was able to let loose and pick off enemy players with his individual plays. If you're a FaZe plan, you could say that he was smeaging, if you will, but he also had solid teammates behind his back and had some sort of strategy that goes along with every play. For example, here we see on this round by Sentinels that they don't really have much map control. Because of this, TENZ decides to get a peek onto A long to see if any enemies are there that may indicate a push in that direction. Knowing that there could be an enemy at an off angle, he starts off jiggle peeking to scout out the players. With his high mechanical skill and knowing where the enemy is now, TENZ gains the advantage as he is able to line up his crosshair once he peeks and simply has to click and shoot the enemy's head. The enemy appears to have the advantage initially, but the smart aggressive play turns things around in TENZ's favor, where he is now prepared for the duel and ready to take advantage of Peeker's advantage, while Reyna has to wait and try to react to what TENZ does, which is much harder to do. When speaking of aggression, we have to go through this play by TENZ during overtime against 100 Thieves, where 100 Thieves actually had match point. With a man advantage and 100 Thieves pushing hard onto the C site, TENZ makes the decision to push to the smoke at spawn and go for a pick, and with an insane flick he's able to grab a frag and even out the round. TENZ goes on to grab another kill to finish up the retake, but this aggressive play, which tends to result in you getting picked off instead, is actually the right move to make given that the situation was not in Sentinels' favor at the time. Playing standard wouldn't have worked here, and a big play was needed in which TENZ is able to step up to the plate and make. Again, this is a combination of TENZ's playstyle and mechanics that allowed him to go for these aggressive plays and get away with it. And speaking of playstyles, if you want to develop your own playstyle and take your game to the next level, then go to SkillCapped.com to unlock our hyper improvement system that will teach you everything you need to blast through the rankings in Valorant. The link will be provided in the description below. The third way TENZ was able to dominate the VCT Masters was with his high reaction speed. Mastering different tricks on an agent is difficult enough on its own, but being able to react quick enough to utilize those tricks when the time is right is what really makes TENZ stand out among other players. Particularly in the VCT Masters, TENZ demonstrated incredible reaction speed to plays that the enemy team was making. The play that particularly stood out to us was on this round in Ascent vs 100 Thieves. TENZ drops down to a mere 10 health and is about to get shot by Hunter's Fury. He manages to quickly react once he's heard the ultimate sound cue and immediately updrafts and maneuvers his agent to avoid all 3 shots. Not only does he avoid the ultimate, but he gets back in with that aggression that we mentioned earlier to get another operator pick on his way out. This completely changes the round where it seemed dire for Sentinels and should have honestly been a round win for 100 Thieves, but TENZ doing TENZ things turns it around and even grabs another kill at the end along with the help of Sick. These quick reactions are why TENZ shines the most with duelists such as Jett, Reyna, and Raze, who all require a high reaction speed to play well with. Essentially all of Jett's abilities are meant to be used for reactionary plays, while Raze and Reyna both have abilities such as satchels and dismiss to get into enemy faces and then quickly jump out. This ensures TENZ is able to push out for a kill and then just as quickly escape to constantly give man advantages to his team while also outmaneuvering and outplaying the competition. And while we're on this topic, it's important to note that these reactionary plays take a ton of practice to get down, so it's not out of the picture for you to be able to pull off these maneuvers as well. However, now that you know what these tricks are, you're going to need to put in the hours just like TENZ does to get these plays off smoothly. Moving on, while TENZ was able to play his style and take advantage of his mechanical prowess, there was also a lot of team play involved that allowed him to frag out. At the end of the day, no matter how good mechanically you are at Valorant, it is still a team game with 5 players on each side. Having just one incredible player isn't going to be enough to make a team win. Luckily, all of the players on Sentinels are able to hold their own, but most importantly, they know how to work together to pull off plays. One of the plays that really stood out to us is this combination that was done with Jett and Omen. A popular play that's done on Ascent defense is that Omen will throw a blind down A main while Jett dashes in to kill the blinded players. TENZ and Zoms took this to another level where they completely caught Raze off guard. With a boombot coming through to clear A main, Raze was not prepared for an enemy to push up onto her. What ends up happening is the boombot triggers, but TENZ dashes past it to push onto the unsuspecting Raze. Now this is actually a bad play if done individually, but what happens is that Zoms throws a blind through A main as the boombot triggers to take away Raze's vision and sound. This allows TENZ to dash away from the boombot and get to Raze without her even knowing what hit her. To give you another example, we have another clip where TENZ aggressively pushes out middle with Sick and they're able to surprise the enemy with their crossfire setup. By pushing out in multiple areas at once, the enemy team has no idea where to look, they get confused, and TENZ and Sick were able to mop the floor with them. Had one of them pushed out individually, this would have been a much different scenario that would have favored Luminosity, but the team play is what made it work. It's this kind of teamwork that allowed not only TENZ, but the entirety of Sentinels to breeze through pretty much every opponent they faced during the VCT Masters. Last but not least, the 5th way that TENZ was able to dominate VCT Masters is do what we call counter-stratting. If you're not familiar with this term, essentially what counter-stratting is when a team does their research on their opponents and they find out what sort of habits and strategies that they tend to use. From there, teams will then try to predict what the enemy is going to do and develop a plan to counter that. The credit for this really comes down to Sentinels in-game leader Shazam, who does the majority of the team's VOD reviews and takes notes on what each team tends to do. He's essentially the strat maker of the team, and his efforts really showed during VCT Masters, particularly against FaZe Clan. For example, from what FaZe has been doing in previous matches in the tournament on Icebox was hitting A site every single round, and this worked against other teams but not against Sentinels, as they were prepared for the A hits before FaZe was able to make a move. You can see in this round that Sentinels initially sets up with 2 players middle, 1 player in kitchen, and 2 players on A. This setup was done because Sentinel knew that FaZe was likely going to hit A, and because of that they leaned everyone towards A. Once it seems like middle was clear, Sentinel immediately rotates 2 more players to A, and now there's 4 Sentinel members on the site before FaZe can even get there, and the site becomes very hard to take now. Not only did this happen with FaZe, but Sentinel had their game plan but also had a good idea of what the enemy was going to do and played around that as well. This information put TENZ along with all of the other Sentinel members in good positions to defend and attack a site. Alright, so let us know in the comment section below on who your favorite player is in Valorant, and while you're down there, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get more premium guides just like this one with one goal in mind, helping you become a better player. We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching. We'll catch you in the next. I'm Dr. Zora, and good luck out there.